So good morning, depending on where you are. Good day, good afternoon, good evening, good night. And let me take this opportunity to welcome you to this dialogue series. Good, thank you. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you to this dialogue series on youth entrepreneurship.
Alex, you're muted.
And my colleague, Dr. Miriam Charimbu from Egerton University. And audience, just to remind you that this session is being interpreted into French. And before I introduce our panelists, I'd just like to say something, and I'll really be very brief. And I believe that this dialogue will not only drive conversations towards exploring Africa's entrepreneurship ecosystem, it will also create very important avenues that we need for synergy, mutual support, self-sustaining channels for the co-creation of solutions within the youth entrepreneurial space. And let me take this opportunity to thank the AAP, Michigan State University, and Egerton University for making this dialogue a reality. And we expect more social and economic investments and policies that will support the youth entrepreneur ecosystem. I look forward to an engaging session. Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our panelists. The first one, we have Professor Isaac Kibwage. Professor Isaac Kibwage is the Vice Chancellor of Egerton University, and he'll be joining us shortly, or if he has already joined, Professor Kibwage, you are welcome. And this is the time that you can now officially open this dialogue series. Professor Kibwage, are you in the house? If you're not there, then I think we'll move to the next panelist. But when he comes in, we'll make a point of requesting him to open this dialogue. So can we move to the next panelist? And this is Professor Patience Mushenga. And Professor Patience Mushenga is a professor of agribusiness and is the current Dean, Faculty of Agriculture at Egerton University. And the title of her presentation is on youth employment, analysis of opportunities and challenges. Professor Patience Mushenga, you have not more than 10 minutes to make your presentation. The floor is yours, Professor Mushenga.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll go to my presentation, which is on youth employment opportunities and challenges. And as we know, the world is experiencing a youth bulge, especially in Africa. And because of this now, this poses a problem when it comes to employment opportunities. Another thing that is bringing about youth unemployment is the issue about the expansion of education services. We find that in the African setting, we have been having an expansion in education services, but with this expansion also, there has been a challenge when it comes to the quality of education in Africa. And this brings about a mismatch in terms of the skills that are required by the industry and the skills that the graduates have when they leave school or universities. Moving on, we find that because of this now, we have increased poverty rates, and this lead to the youth moving from rural areas to urban areas in search of jobs. And as you can see there, we have a clip of young people who've just graduated. These are people who are looking for jobs, and they have banners there. showing that really there are no jobs out there. And therefore, there is need for us to be able to do something about this. But as we are talking about the youth employment opportunities and challenges, maybe we may need to get into the policies that are there when it comes to the region, that is the African region, and also the specific countries that we have in Africa. So briefly, I'll just go through a few of the policies that strategies that we've been having in the African region that address youth employment. And the person who is moving the presentation, please kindly move on. So in the region, we have been having the African Youth Charter by the African Union. The other strategy is the establishment of the Youth Desk in the new Partnership for African Development, that is the NEPAD. We have the Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program, that is CAADP, and here we are mostly focusing on Result Area 3, which deals with entrepreneurship and increased public or private investment. And then we have the STISA, and here we are focusing on wealth creation. Though we have been having all this, we are still facing the problem of youth unemployment in Africa, and different countries have also come up with their own policies and strategies to be able to address the problem of youth unemployment in Africa. And briefly, I'll go through the challenges and then I'll go to the opportunities, and later I will look at the different ways in which we can be able to address the challenges. For the challenges, I'm going to look at this in terms of the demand side factors and also the supply side factors. For the demand side factors, we have the issue of the economy, and here we are looking at the declining economies, not only in Africa, but throughout the world, especially post-COVID. We have been finding that many of the organizations, that is the private sector, most of the organizations closed down because of the effect of COVID, and therefore this has posed a problem when it comes to employment, in that most people lost their jobs. We also have a problem on economic policies, and these policies, most at times, if we look at most of the policies in the African countries, they're not focusing on employment per se. Most at times, employment is addressed just as not as the core, but something that comes out of the policies. Also, we have the problem of negative perception of the employers, in that most employers will not wish to employ graduates who are fresh from the universities or from school. And this may be because of the lack of experience. And sometimes they may say that they are too young even to be able to hold some of the positions in the organization. Another problem is the lack of entry-level jobs. You may find that in most organizations, we are getting fewer and fewer entry-level jobs, and therefore, since the youth, most of them get into the job market at the entry level, then they miss the opportunity to get into organizations to work there. Another issue is about information. We have been having a problem with the youth getting information, and this is brought about by the issue that most of the youth live in rural areas, and for them getting access to information about available jobs, then it becomes very difficult for them to access this information. Let's move on with the presentation. And when it comes to the agricultural sector, then we are having the issues to do with the lack of access to production resources. For example, lack of credit, lack of land, because most of the times we find that the land may be communal, or maybe the parents are the ones who are holding the titles to land, and therefore the youth cannot be able to own land. And then we also have the problem of lack of access to high value markets when it comes to marketing of the agricultural products. Also, we can be able to have the factors that are on the supply side. And here we are talking about the mismatch between the skills of the youth who are graduating from schools or graduating from colleges and what the industry demands. And this is because of the lack of linkages between the industry and the educational institutions. Also, we are having a youth bulge in that we are having more youth out there looking for jobs vis-a-vis the number of jobs that are there in the labor market. Also, the youth lack the social capital, and here we are talking about maybe the issues to do with the networks whereby the youth can be connected to the jobs that are out there. Still on the supply side, the youth lack the experience for them to be able to get employment in the private sector and also even in the public sector. One major issue also that is coming, that we are facing, is the lack of life and soft skills. And here, most of the employers are complaining that the youth do not have the soft skills, that are the transversal skills that are required, and also lack of the life skills. For example, we were conducting a small survey just recently, and one of the things that the employers were complaining about was that the youth, most at times, they really do not want to come early to work. Most of the times they may come late to work. And when they come to work also, sometimes they do not even concentrate on the job. They are always on their mobile phones. So this shows a lack of soft skills and also lack of life skills. Another major issue is corruption. Most of the times the youth are locked out of jobs because of corruption, in that they are required maybe to give something small in exchange for a job, and most of them do not have maybe the monies to give or such like a thing. And then the other thing is negative perception of the youth on some jobs. So the youth have some specific jobs that they would wish to do, and when they are presented with another job, they may refuse to do that job because they do not want to do it, in terms of whether they really have the interest for that or not.
You have 1
Now,
minute.
moving forward. Okay, thank you. The opportunities, we have youth employment initiatives. We have several opportunities there in terms of the government and development partners. Also, we have agricultural development. And here we can even, in terms of agricultural development, we have opportunities in the African continent free trade area, entrepreneurship, education, and incubation. This has become something that is very major these days. Also, another opportunity is in terms of growth in employment sectors, for example, ICT and services, the construction and real estate, wholesale and retail linkages between education skills. Also, we have globalization and new sectors of employment, for example, the orange economy. Addressing these bottlenecks, we will need that the government should invest more in the youth. We should also have linkages between industry and training institutions. And then we need more trainings, for example, in the technical skills, leadership skills, business skills, entrepreneurship, soft skills, and life skills. Also, it will be important to avail productive resources to the youth, for example, land and finance. It will also be important to have a systemic approach towards youth employment. For example, we can have the government, the private sector, the education and training sector, NGOs and development partners, and the young people working together in addressing these bottlenecks. In terms of addressing the negative attitudes, the youth can be able to have mentors and also role models. And also we need to address the bias of family, friends, and the media against certain careers, because the family and friends, sometimes they discourage the youth in participating in certain careers. Mm-hmm. Let's move on. And I'm going to end with a quote from Guy Ryder, whereby he says that investing today in the employment of young people means investing in the present and the future of our societies. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Mushenga, for that presentation. Our next presenter is Dr. Lauren Hofstein. Dr. Hofstein is the faculty director of the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Michigan State University in the US. And the title of her presentation is a university's role in supporting youth entrepreneurship. Dr. Hofstein, the floor is yours, please.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that the presentation, you can apply it to your context while it is what we are doing here at Michigan State University. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the Burgess Institute is our Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Michigan State University. And I wanted to start by sharing our mission. It's to empower students to learn through action by providing programs, courses, and resources to foster an entrepreneurial mindset and to create new ventures. So I know a lot of today's program is focused on entrepreneurship and creating new ventures, but we also spend a lot of time at the university thinking about how we develop an entrepreneurial mindset. And I think some of those skills that the previous presenter was talking about can apply here as well. What are the skills that students need to be creative, to be resilient? And I'll talk about those a little bit more further in my presentation. As for the program at Michigan State University, our entrepreneurship program has been ranked top 25 for the past 5 years. And we have over 5,000 students at the university participating in some form of our academic entrepreneurship courses, and many more really as part of the ecosystem of our programs, which I'll talk about next. If you'd like, thank you. So a few things that make up the ecosystem of entrepreneurship for youth at Michigan State University. The centerpiece is really our entrepreneurship and innovation minor, and this is open to all students across the university. So they might major in horticulture, they might major in the arts, they might major in business, but they can all access our minor for entrepreneurship and innovation. We have about 5 courses that the students take during their time at the university. And those courses, several of the electives are in their home colleges so that they can apply entrepreneurship in the context in which they're learning. And then we have an additional 2 experiences that are required. And those experiences might be participating in our discovery and launch programs, which I'll talk about next. They might be attending a 2-day venture competition, which is basically a kind of a startup weekend. If you have those in your home institutions, where students see how far they can take a business idea in a very short period of time, attending speaker series or even doing another entrepreneurial event. We also, outside of our coursework, support students through our discovery and launch programs. Discovery is more for students that know they want to start a business, or they have an idea, but they're not quite sure what to do with it yet. So we put them through a series of exercises where they might do some research on the idea, do some market research, talk to some customers, put together a business model canvas, make some milestones for how they might be able to start discovering their business. They also meet with someone on our staff so that we can make sure that we're encouraging them to make the right decisions as they think towards starting their own business. As part of the launch program, we are able to give them more tailored services where we connect them to entrepreneurs in residence who are alumni of Michigan State University or other successful entrepreneurs. So that mentorship piece that the prior speaker was talking about is very important for our students as well. We also give them funding for things like creating a prototype, or going to pitch competitions, or hiring someone to help with their marketing, so that they can get as far as possible with their business while they're within the university community, because it can be very difficult, as you all know, to have students starting on their own. I see there might be some questions coming in the chat, and I'll respond to those after my portion of the presentation. So thank you for those. We also hope to build the entrepreneurial ecosystem at Michigan State and the surrounding areas by including students in pitch events. We do that both right at the university. We have a Burgess New Venture Challenge in the spring. There are several student groups that run their own pitch competitions throughout the year. And we also take students throughout the state of Michigan and the surrounding region in cities like Detroit in Michigan and Chicago in Illinois. We also take students further out. We often talk in entrepreneurship about getting out of the building. So we take students to larger conferences such as TechCrunch, the Consumer Electronics Show, and South by Southwest. So these are areas where there are a lot of entrepreneurs and others coming together to talk about entrepreneurship. And so we believe that immersing them in these kinds of ecosystems can really help them to see what's possible. Next slide, please. Thank you. The last portion of my conversation, I wanted to talk about some research we're doing on the entrepreneurial mindset at Michigan State University. Not all of our students will start the businesses. Even if they start a business in college, it's very likely that they may not continue that as their sole support for themselves beyond that. And so we want to make sure we're setting them up to be successful, to come back to entrepreneurship later in life. The average age of an entrepreneur is really in their 40s, at least in the United States. And so we want to make sure we're giving them a good foundation while they're within our care at the university. So while the entrepreneurial mindset is a concept that exists broadly, there are several different measures for it, and it's not all agreed upon. And so through interviews and scale development at Michigan State, we came up with these 7 factors that we feel really embody the Michigan State University entrepreneurial mindset. Having creative confidence, feeling like you can be creative in several situations. Being open to new opportunities, opportunity recognition, just being skilled at recognizing when new opportunities present themselves and when the window of opportunity is truly open. Optimism, so really thinking about resilience. We talk about that a lot across all institutions. I think making sure that students are finding some optimism that they can continue even when times are tough. Proactiveness. That's certainly, I think the youth are especially proactive in many cases, but really encouraging them to take action towards exploring their ideas. Risk tolerance and mitigation skills. So being able to take that tiptoeing out into the world of entrepreneurship if they even if they don't have business skills, if they are someone who's in a non-business related field, and helping to support them and say, hey, you've got this great idea, you've recognized a great opportunity, you should take some steps to pursue it, and helping them use research and resources to reduce the risk. And then solution seeking. So when they identify a problem, are they able to continue towards finding a solution? Next slide, please. Thank you. So the mindset can help us see what works, what needs improvement, and what the gaps are in our programming. The way that we are applying this entrepreneurial mindset at Michigan State is to survey students at the beginning. We were surveying them at the beginning of classes and at the end of entrepreneurship classes. We're moving to survey them as they come into our entrepreneurship minor and as they leave our entrepreneurship minor to really find out for ourselves, are we helping students to become better innovators by impacting all areas of the mindset? We also want to make sure that we're measuring educational outcomes without only relying on indicators like businesses started. Yes, it's important for entrepreneurship. We all want to see the youth create businesses, whether it's coming out of school, but that can't be the only measure. There have to be other things that we are looking to make sure that they're innovating within the careers that for a lifetime. And then lastly, can we demonstrate educational value for those going into existing entrepreneur organizations as entrepreneurs? So I think there's one more slide. Yes, I just wanted to share my contact information, and I think it's there as part of the program as well. But please feel free to contact me if you want to discuss this more. And thank you so much again for having me on this panel. I look forward to the Q&A.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Dr. Hofstein. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing your second name well.
You are. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your stimulating presentation. I think we'll move to the next presenter. And the audience, if there is any question, put your questions at the chat section. We'll respond to all those questions in the during the Q&A session. So the next presenter is Mr. Wilson Karimi. And Mr. Karimi is the Project and the Youth Empowerment Officer of the USAID Empowered Youth Program at Egerton University. And the title of his presentation is Regional and Local Experiences with Increasing Economic Prospects of Youth Through Entrepreneurship. Mr. Karimi, the floor is yours and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is to share my real-life experiences working with entrepreneurs and actually learning from them and getting experiences and knowing what we need to improve from our perspective. As the Prof said, I work within an incubation or an entrepreneur support organization that is Coelib, and we've really worked with other entrepreneurship organizations within Kenya and also within Africa. So 92% of tech investments in Africa goes to only, I think, 4 countries. That is Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, and South Africa. The question would be why? Do these countries get this amount of money? Looking at 2021, the amount of investment that was brought in Africa for tech investment was around $4.3 billion US. And this has been attributed because of the entrepreneur support organization or the entrepreneur support ecosystem within these countries, especially in Kenya. If you look at what we have more than 1,300 entrepreneur support systems that help entrepreneurs grow and also establish their businesses. So from my experience, we cannot underestimate the power of these institutions. We've seen that most of the entrepreneurs and most of the companies that have gone worldwide, especially from Africa, is as a result of the support they've gotten from these organizations. And in Kenya, we've gone a step further in bringing these associations together into one unit to actually share lessons and also to try and come up with a unique way of bringing up or even supporting entrepreneurs. We have 2 organizations, that is national organizations, that is Association of Startup and SME Entrepreneurs in Kenya, and also the countrywide hub association. So these organizations make sure that we have unified roles, and actually we are sharing our lessons again as support systems, and ensure that we also try to come up with either a curriculum or one way of trying to support entrepreneurs to ensure that they succeed. We know startups in the beginning, they need a lot of support, especially in terms of showing them the way in ideation and also linking them with investors and other opportunities. Next. Also from my experiences, I discovered that, we know that we have a lot of entrepreneurship education going on, especially in our institutions, that is our education institutions. But in my experience from our side in terms of the universities, this is offered as a unit. And I think this is not enough. And this now calls for also other institutions in Africa and also in Kenya to ensure that they have innovation centers that support entrepreneurship. And we need to change the way we are training, or maybe the way we train entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship, from my experience, it is a behavior. I think my previous speaker iterated that they have identified 7 competencies that an entrepreneurs need to make sure that they succeed. But from my previous, I've seen that we have around 30 competencies that we need for an entrepreneur to succeed. And this really comes out as a behavior rather than, getting this as a theory. So one, we look at shortly, somebody is, you please mute.
Continue.
Okay. So we look at a situation where we have very self-driven entrepreneurs, people who are be able to believe in themselves, and they are able to take matters in their hand. This is what we call the internal locus of control. Instead of them blaming other situations, it is for them to come up and ensure that it is their role to take up and try to solve the problems that we have using their own solutions that can be converted into businesses. When it comes to the motivation, this needs to be very intrinsic in terms of comes within, especially in terms of when it comes to them, propelling their going concerns or their enterprises. The other thing, we're looking at resilience. How resilient are they? And when it comes to resilience, we are not only looking at the individual themselves, we are looking as a team in terms of their own organizations. Are they themselves resilient, and also as a team, are they resilient? Because sometimes you might have a very resilient entrepreneurs as persons, and they might end up, hurting their teams because sometimes their teams are not resilient. And then we need to actually guide them on terms of how they also need to build the resilience of their teams. The other thing, we're looking at their growth mindset. Are they thinking of starting small and then growing and becoming big, or are they thinking about starting big? And sometimes we see that most of the entrepreneurs end up losing and sometimes closing their businesses. The self-belief, as I said, is very key when it comes to growing an entrepreneurship mindset. Next. Also from my experience, when we started out, we started out with 5 companies, especially within our organizations. We gave them money to start off because we thought maybe capital would be the barrier for people to start businesses. But we learned a lesson, because when we gave this money, some of them went and used this money for their personal use. We didn't really follow up and make sure that we supported them. But after learning this, we came up with a program where we used to train them for 1 year and then reduce that to 6 months. Then after that 6 months, we really follow up and have the right mentorship. And from that, we saw that we had a very huge success rate on our startups. And from this, we learned that we need the right mentorship. And this comes in us using the real mentors than us using the theoretical mentors. When I mean about the theoretical mentors are people, they know about entrepreneurship, but have not practiced this entrepreneurship. Most of them, they just learned theoretically about entrepreneurship. But we need to pair the entrepreneurs with real people and real mentors who have gone the journey. Because as we all know, the journey for entrepreneurship is not easy. It is not a straight line. And I think for me, what I've learned is that when I want to pair my startup with a mentor, then they have to identify a mentor who meets their needs, and they are able to connect and they are able to understand their roles. Because sometimes, even if you get the real mentor, sometimes the mentees don't have the right attitude to actually match with their mentors. So I think for us, what we've learned that this is very, very key when it comes to success. And we've seen that most of the companies that have real mentors and paired with the right mentors, then they end up succeeding. And then their business is scaling up and growing and employing more people.
2 minutes.
Next. And the other thing is the role of design thinking in terms of entrepreneurship. I know for us, most of the time, we've started with the idea, that is with the solution, and then we go to the problem. But I think it is time for us to change our entrepreneurship education, as I said. We need a design-based entrepreneurship education. For us, we need to start with understanding the problem first and then creating the idea. But in tradition, it has been that most of the entrepreneurs come up with the idea first and then try to solve the problems. And then this brings a huge problem when it comes to actually the market fit, because sometimes you end up going to the market and then they find out their users are not accepting what they are bringing to the market. But in the real sense, what they're supposed to do first is really understand the problem the users are facing, get into their shoes, and then come up with a solution. And this will also help us especially solve the wicked problems that we have it is not possible to solve, but then we can come with solutions that can help mitigate these wicked problems. Next. From this, most of the students that we've been incubating and also supporting, they come up with a mindset that when I become an entrepreneur, the next day, maybe after 2 months, I'll become a billionaire, and then my life will be smooth. But from our institution, or maybe from where I sit from, then you find out for us, the motto is fail fast, learn fast, and move on. So I think failure is part of entrepreneurship. And for us, we don't take failure as something that is the end, but we take failure as a lesson, something that will teach you on the journey and then help you, grow and be able to come up with very good solutions that will grow your business and ensure that, you're successful. And also part of it is accepting, because for you to be resilient, one thing is to accept that failure is part of life. And this is why we are seeing a lot of people suffering from, especially entrepreneurs, having a lot of mental health issues. It is because they can't accept that failure is part of what they need. And for a good entrepreneur, for me, what I've seen is something that accepts failure, works around it, moves on, and they're able to come up with solutions to make sure that their businesses or their going concerns are successful. Next.
1 minute, Wilson.
Yes. Then there is need for more local investors. I've said, we've attracted around $4.3 billion US in terms of tech investments in Africa. But the question would be, where do these investments come? And if these investments are coming from outside, then this leaves a very huge gap in terms of where our money is going. And sometimes from the experience, we've seen that most of the startups end up being, bought by outside investors because, the power of the money is where most of these companies will go. From my experience, maybe is to ensure that more Kenyans, especially the Kenyans, we invest more rather than us investing in some of the investments like what is common in Kenya in the real estate. It is a call now for us to invest more in our startups and believe on our startups. And this will ensure that our startups grow and they also become international companies. So we are calling for investors, local investors, to believe more on our entrepreneurs and to make sure that they support our entrepreneurs, especially our startups. It is possible in Africa. We've seen international organizations coming from Africa, and they are changing the world. Yeah, so that is a call. Next. The other thing, as I close, is seeing the big picture. And this is something that we started out, especially with the youth entrepreneurs. Most of them want to come up with big ideas and, grow from the big ideas. The thing is, when they come to us, we tell them, yeah, it is good for you to think big, but you need to start small. So we provide a very conducive environment for them to prototype, come up with minimal viable products that will enable them to test initially. And then from there, when they learn from the markets, then they are able to grow big. And the motto is that when you start small, you have to have a goal. So but you take small steps towards the big goal. And this is what I've seen. So for those entrepreneurs that are able to follow through small steps, then they are able to achieve their big goal at the end of the day, and their companies are able to be more sustainable when it comes to the long run. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Wilson, for that presentation. And the audience, continue noting your questions through the chat function of Zoom. So we move to the next presenter. And the next presenter is Dr. Matongomolo Mongwa. Dr. Mongwa is the founding director and practicing doctor at Kalafi Medical Center in Botswana. The title of her presentation is The New Normal, Harnessing the Fourth Industrial Revolution to Accelerate the Growth of Youth Enterprises. Dr. Mongwa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair, for that introduction. I think very interesting times, very interesting conversation, but little time. I'll try as much as possible to run through as quick as possible. Basically, my talk is just about a post-COVID world. It's been 3 years now since the COVID pandemic, and I'm just talking about incorporating technology into youth businesses and how young entrepreneurs can really take advantage of the growing trends in tech to grow their businesses. Can we move to the next slide? Just a brief introduction about myself and my company. I'm a young entrepreneur from Botswana. Started Kalafi Medical Center in 2018 with 1 clinic. Currently, we're standing at 4 clinics with 3 pharmacies, 2 physiotherapies. We have now a aesthetic practice as well, and we are planning to open a day hospital, a smart hospital in 2023. Just giving a brief background, because later on I want to just talk about the experience of Kalafi as well. Next slide, please. All right, I'll just address this in the last part of my presentation. Next slide. So the 4th industrial revolution, I think most of us are aware or do have some idea of what the 4th industrial revolution is. It is the current environment that is in some countries or in some areas more advanced than others, which we have these disruptive technologies and trends, such as the Internet of Things, such as the use of robotics that we see in first world countries, the use of virtual reality, which making it possible for us to even have these dialogues from wherever you are in the world, the use of artificial intelligence that are changing the way our lives are now. So like I said, other areas are more advanced in terms of technology than others, especially Africa, especially here at home in Botswana. The 4th industrial revolution is what has enabled all of us to be able to access one world through the touch of a finger. It has broken barriers in terms of communication. We're able to all access each other from anywhere in the world. We're able to connect and network with each other from anywhere in the world. And it has really opened opportunities for growth, especially in young enterprises, and also just improved access to information. So just moving on to the next slide. So with regards to a post-COVID world, we are now in this new era that was catalyzed by this pandemic, the COVID virus. We are now finding ourselves in a state where our relationship with technology has really deepened. We are more of a digital world, a tele-everything world, where we see things like telemedicine, online shopping, all these social media platforms and all other platforms that we use in our daily lives and in our businesses that are all coming through cause of tech. And like I said, other areas have been doing this for the longest time, but really COVID catalyzed everything for us, especially here in Africa, to even take on more technology and use more technology. We are forced to use technology because of having been experiencing those lockdowns where we were distanced from each other, where we were forced to work from home, and all the things that we did experience with COVID that really, really forced us to incorporate technology into our daily lives. Next slide, please. So this is just a saying that says there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen, which is exactly what happened with us through COVID. Through COVID, it has really fast-tracked some things that were so far-fetched for a lot of us, especially in business, especially in our daily lives, in terms of using technology and incorporating technology into our lives. Next slide, please. I think we can move on just to say that we find ourselves in this post-COVID world where we have this new way of living our lives and work, and everything has changed because of this pandemic that we all experienced recently. Next slide, please. So in terms of business, I think at this point, being able to change or being able to adapt is very important. It's key to survival for any business. And we found ourselves through COVID having to change some of the processes or some of the models that we were so used to, and some of the ways that we were so used to. And in our businesses, we've had to change. Even through my business, where we offer health services, we had to, even during COVID, offer things like telemedicine, which people were not really open to before, but it is through the COVID pandemic that really fast-tracked this to be accepted as a way of providing healthcare as well. Next slide, please. So, like I said, COVID has really forced us to relook at our models and re-strategize and change the way that we were doing business as young entrepreneurs, and more so incorporating technology. We find ourselves with new models that now we work remotely. Your office is wherever you are now. You can work from anywhere in the world for a lot of enterprises. So this is something that we really have to accept and really have to be open to. We find ourselves that we have to look into things like cybersecurity and adapt to the new changes that are coming with this technology. We find ourselves having to change our models to be more collaborative, and most importantly, tech really helped and really brought in this helping our enterprises to be more efficient and more productive through the incorporation of technology. Next slide, please. So what does technology in youth businesses look like? Basically, if you don't remember anything from my presentation, just remember this, that technology in a young entrepreneur's business should be looked at as something that is going to improve efficiency, cut down costs, and that is really going to improve the bottom line in terms of growing your enterprise. And these are some of the benefits that we can really look at in terms of taking advantage of growing technologies and new trends that will really benefit our enterprises, including your effective marketing through digital marketing. Like a strong social media or digital marketing presence is directly proportional in a lot of cases to how well the business does, and also dependent on what kind of enterprise you have. Technology has really brought in and helped in improving productivity and efficiency. We see improved customer service and customer experiences that technology has brought in through promoting brand loyalty and also just customer experiences overall, even employee experiences through technology. People now are happy to work from home. People now are happy that they can work from wherever they are in the world. So basically, just there's really a lot to benefit from technology, and as young entrepreneurs, we really have to incorporate the tech into our businesses. Next slide, please.
1 minute.
1 minute, okay. Just quickly, as a young entrepreneur, you may be asking yourself, how do you incorporate technology into your your business. You don't have to be a tech person. The world is now, like I said, through the fourth industrial revolution, you can work with anyone from anywhere in the world. You can collaborate with people in tech. And now there's a lot of, like the previous presenter said, there's a lot of investment in tech, and that is where we should all be going. Just quickly, the story of Kalafi in terms of technology. Through COVID, we've had to pivot, learn something that's called pivoting in terms of just changing our strategies as well. Our vision at Kalafi is to transform Botswana into a medical tourism hub in Africa, and we've had to change our how we get to that through the solution being tech. We are now going into changing our facilities into smart clinics, changing to going to smart hospitals, and we are taking on a lot of technology and hoping also to benchmark from other places and other countries that are more advanced to achieve this. So just scroll down to my last slide. Yes, my last slide is, I'll leave you with this. Our future success is directly proportional to our ability to understand, adopt, and integrate new technology into our work. If ever you had doubt about incorporating technology into your business, there's no better time than now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mongwa, for that presentation. Our next presenter is Mr. Samuel Mwangi, and Mr. Mwangi is the CEO and the founder of Pluto's technology company. And we are always proud of this company because this is one of the companies that was incubated here at Egerton University. So Mr. Mwangi's presentation, the title is on innovating with the youth and creating decent jobs. Mr. Mwangi, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you, Professor. So, as you have heard, my name is Samuel Mwangi. I'm the CEO and founder of Pluto's Technology. We are a technology company. Next slide, please. We are a technology company located in Joro, and we have managed to develop several products, technological products here in Kenya, which includes an infill reader, nanotap, Tawaza multivated Bukata. These are machines that solve local problems here in Kenya. And these machines have been developed by youth between 24 and 27 years. Normally, we are 12 people who depend on the company directly, and around 3 who depend on it indirectly. So we have been supported by Credit, MasterCard, Agri, KCIC, Kenya, and also Egerton University. And we have won a national award winners in 2020, and also awarded as an African Young Entrepreneurs Winner in 2021, and nominated by Qatar, the Startup of the Year. Also, we have won the Kiambu County. So next page. So whenever we talk about innovation, we talk it on the importance we have had on the society here. So, for example, whenever we are innovating, we look at technologies that improve the standards of living around us. So, as you know, Africa is technologically behind compared to Europe and other countries. So, meaning even our standards of living are not as good as Europe. So, the purpose of us as a company, of course, is increasing the standards of living by having technological solutions to them. So whenever the youth are innovating, we see it as a way of improving the standards of living around us. We also increase productivity, especially in agriculture. So innovation is very important in improving productivity. And for even Africa to develop, then innovations have to be here. And our problems are different from problems in Europe, in Asia, and only our local solutions can work for our local problems. And now for us to increase productivity, then innovation is very important. And whenever we increase productivity, especially on agriculture, we will have economic growth. So for Africa to improve its economics and its prosperity, then innovation is very important. And also, as we all know, innovation also solves problems. And as such, then it means that for us to solve even the problems that we have in Africa of the many problems we have in Africa of transport, agriculture, then innovations have to be part and parcel of us. Next slide. So whenever we are talking about innovative in the youth, then we have to tell the youth how they choose to innovate. So this is how, from my experience, to innovate with my team of employees. So we start by having an idea, and from the idea is where we generate, where we study and see the problems we have in Africa or Kenya. For example, one of our products solves the problem we have in rare chips here. It's the most selling product we have over 250 machines so far. So, from the idea, we got the idea from the problems we have around the community here, and we generate from the idea. Now we go to step 2, where we evaluate the feasibility of the idea. Being an engineer or a technological person in Africa is a bit tricky, because whenever you are evaluating your idea, you also have to look at cost, because cost plays a very big role. If at all your product has to be accepted in the market, number one factor has to be cost. We are very sensitive. So the first thing you evaluate on the feasibility of the idea is the costs, and you have to see that you can solve the problems the customer want. So whenever we are solving many problems around us, we have to look at these factors and see if we really need to go to the third step, which is building. And whenever we go to building, we have an idea of how much the customers will spend on the idea, on the solution we are building. Building is the building process of an idea is very tiresome. Of course, takes a lot of time and a lot of money, and it takes processes of prototyping, MVP, and final product. It's a process that takes, of course, a very continuous process as we keep on changing on how we do things. In fact, how we visualize our idea if you come 12 months later, if the idea will have changes a lot. So the building process is, of course, as Wilson said earlier, has so many ups and downs. And now after building, now we go to the fourth step, which is now commercialization. Commercialization is now where you now go, where now you think about mass producing and making system and how we market the product, develop plans, know who the suppliers are. So whenever you are talking to the youth, then I think we should train them on how to innovate, because most youth will start from step 3, which is building, and you cannot start from building and you skip step 2, which is advocacy and screening, or you start from commercialization, and you are not really sure if you are really solving a problem in a community, meaning people will not be able to buy your product. Next slide. So the challenges we have, or from these are challenges we have from my own experience. So we lack the necessary technologies to do innovation. Apparently, in Africa, it's tricky because you have to develop a machine to solve your problem than go directly to, for example, I want to manufacture an iPhone. I need to make a machine that makes the iPhone. So we really lack the technologies to do innovation around us. And it is a big challenge we have. In fact, if you look at the product development cycle in Africa, it's a bit longer from my experience and what my friends are undergoing. So we start from developing the machines first, and then after developing the machines, now the machine does makes now the products now is, and the product is now the solution. So if we had these technologies available to us here in Africa, it means we are going to skip one of the steps that we have. And another problem we have is we don't have an innovating ecosystem like that of Silicon Valley. For example, in Silicon Valley, it's an ecosystem where you have the technical guys, you have the programmers, you have the investors, all of them are around one area, meaning labor is available, machines are available, technologies is available. So it is easy to do innovation in innovation in an ecosystem where an innovative ecosystem, which we all of course lack. Yeah. Another problem we have is we also lack support from the government, which we lack incentives and grant financing. For example, whenever you are a startup, whenever I go to a field in Kenya, I will be in my tax when I'm a startup and a company that has been here for 20 years in business, our tax is the same. We advocate for having incentives for startups to encourage the youth to go into innovation. So we also we have a lower uptake of locally developed technologies in Africa. It is a very big issue here where you have people having problems accepting their own solution to their own problems that are developed in Africa. So we also have, this is another problem we have where we have a bad perception of young innovators in business from customers. For example, myself, I am 27 years old, and most of my customers are around 50 to 60 years old. And you'll find most of them will have a bad perception of a young innovator. So they will think I am inexperienced, I don't have the required experience to handle a full project because of my age. So this perception needs to change. So, and of course, the common problem is lack of capital, grant, loans, and investment. Whenever you look at how investment are done, especially like how it's done in America, investors are ready, loans are rare, we have government grants already for startups. And it's not the same here in Africa. In Africa, you will have a very big problem with capital wherever you're starting. So your innovation cycle will be longer compared to a person in Europe and in America. So what we feel whenever we are innovating, in fact, we say even to our employees that an innovator in Europe and the USA is 10 steps ahead of an innovator in Africa because of these problems that we have in Africa. The next slide.
1 minute, Samuel.
Okay, so the other thing is on solutions. We have the solutions in Kenya, for example, we are developing an innovation ecosystem, which is the Silicon Savannah. If it comes, it means we will have an ecosystem that supports innovation. We also need a lot of training on young innovators. As Wilson said, we need to tell innovators to really think that innovation is not an easy thing. It has so many ups and downs. We also need incentives from the government that is tax relief. and also finances to be made available. And you also need to create awareness that also young people can create solutions, local solutions to local problems. So this will mean that we have an uptake of local solutions and local problems, which will mean now we'll have employment here now. Thank you.
Are you done, Samuel? Oh, good. So thank you very much, Samuel, for that presentation. I think we are done with the presentation, and the audience participants, I think you will agree with me that those were wonderful and quite stimulating presentation. And I've really noted this from the number of questions and the positive comments that we have so far received. And thumbs up to the presenters. And at this particular point, I'd like to request my colleague, Dr. Miriam Charimbu, a lecturer at Egerton University, to take over from here. So Miriam.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We have a number of questions which are addressed to different presenters. I will ask one general question to all of them to address, then we will go to the specific ones. I'll start with Professor Patience Mshenga. How are the entrepreneurship activities considering the gender dynamics, constraints, and opportunities for the female and the male youth in Africa? And the next question will go to Karimi. Please address the entrepreneurship and cultural aspects, especially in the artwork in Africa. Then Dr. Mungwa can address the approaches to upscale and outscale youth entrepreneurship, including economically viable enterprises. And then Samuel can help us answer this. Raurel can help us answer this. Are there entrepreneur support and opportunities, be it internship exchange program at Michigan State University for African youth? And then Samuel can help us, what are the best strategies to empowering African youth entrepreneurs? I think we can start with Patience. I hope everybody has gotten their question.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. And we are looking at entrepreneurship and gender. And the issues here, when it comes to entrepreneurship, then we have the issues to do with training. We also have the issue of resources, and we have the issue of mentorship. So when it comes to training, then we can have training which is similar to both male and female. For example, the training that we have in several training institutions. But then we have programs which are outside the formal training institutions, which are target specific for specific gender, for example, the male and the female. Apart from that, when it comes to mentorship, most of the times we find that there may be a problem with mentorship, especially when it comes to female entrepreneurs, because it's like when we are talking about entrepreneurship, as we've heard from the presentations, it's not easy being an entrepreneur, and it needs a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and a lot of commitment. And most of the times, because of the gender roles that females have, then it becomes a little bit more difficult for us to be able to get mentors in this area, vis-a-vis getting mentors for the female gender. When it comes to resources, one issue that we have in Africa is about the female getting resources, because most of the times we find that it is easier for the male to get resources, because most resources are under the domain of the male more than the female. And therefore, for the female, then there are some programs that go out of their way to be able to assist the female entrepreneurs. And we have had even some institutions, that is credit institutions or banks, that are mostly geared towards female entrepreneurs. For example, in Kenya, we have the Women Finance Trust, or some banks that deal with female entrepreneurs. So I think that is how I'm going to be able to respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Patience. Karemi, I hope you got your question. I can repeat.
Thank you, Mariam. Maybe you can repeat.
Okay. The question is, please address how entrepreneurship and cultural aspects affect artwork in Africa.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, what I would talk about is what I've seen. And it's also an issue that as an ecosystem, we've really discussed, especially when it comes to supporting entrepreneurs. From our experiences, that most of the startups that are being supported in Africa are tech startups, and very few startups when it comes to the art side. This also depends on each country and what preference is given to each country. But this talks us to Kenya, especially when it comes to the arts. The issue is that most of us as Africans do not value art, and sometimes art is considered as something that is not very valuable. But when we go to the international market, then we see that most of this art is attracting huge businesses. So what happens, this means that, especially as I said, because of investment, then most of the investments are coming from outside Africa. And for the investors, they are looking at their ROI, return on investment, and also in terms of the scalability of these startups that are being supported. So most of the money will go to tech startups because of the return on investment and also in terms of the growth. And very few money will go to the arts. In Kenya, we have a few entrepreneur organizations that support art, like Nairobi Garage, but it has not taken up very much because of, I said, as the attitude of us, and also in terms of investment, because for us, we know the value of our art, and sometimes we are seeing our art going to the outside countries and being patented and then comes and sold to us at a very huge price. And this is something that as an ecosystem for us, we need to work on. And also, especially when we're supporting, is to ensure that we support all the startups, not being biased towards especially the tech startups always. But as art is what defines us. This is our culture sometimes. This is how we are supposed to express ourselves as Africans. And instead of us waiting for other people to actually come and sell us after they patented our art, then it's for us to take up. But in the real sense, the uptake has not been very good. But we are trying, especially at Colib. For us, we support design, that is designers. We've worked with an artist who has gone global and sold their art in the US. And also the main problem also would be that some of the artists do not really know the value of their art when they are doing it. And they really need a lot of mentorship and also support for them to actually know how to value their art, because that is also a huge problem. And how do they value their art? How do they value their talent? Yeah, I think I'll stop at that.
Thank you. Thank you, Karemi. Dr. Mongwa, you got your question? Can I repeat the question for you? The question is, what approaches to upscale and outscale youth entrepreneurship, including the economically viable enterprises. Maybe from the example, your example, you can share what you think. You got my question? Okay. Maybe we can go.
You got it. I got it. Miriam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I repeat?
Hello?
Can I repeat?
Okay, maybe I go to the next person as we
Okay,
try
maybe
to
I
get
go to the next person as we try to get a bit.
Can you hear
The
me?
The next,
We have an echo. I don't know
we have
whether it is
an
from
echo.
your
I don't know whether it is from your computer.
Okay, I'll go
Okay.
to Laurel. The question is, are there entrepreneur support or opportunities, be it internship or exchange program offered by Michigan State University to the African youth? And how can you guide on the application process?
Keep doing that. Thank you for the question. Currently, the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation is focused on the students of Michigan State University. That's our primary mission currently. We don't have any formal exchange programs at this time or any formal application process for collaboration, but we continue to explore opportunities. I know that Michigan State I'm newer to the university, but I know that Michigan State has several partnerships with different African groups, and that we continue to look for ways that we can help to support youth entrepreneurs across Africa. And so I'm open to having those conversations, but there's no formal process at this time. Just like you, we're all strained for resources and finding, the right people to make sure that when we offer programs, we can do it with the right people and can fully support those programs. And so I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk to so many of you, and definitely open to having those conversations.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Mongwa, you're back. Okay, I proceed to Samuel. The question for Samuel.
I don't know what the problem is, but I kept on getting muted previously. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yes, I can. You can respond. Thank you.
Okay. I was saying that for me, it's actually some of the things have been addressed through the previous speakers. The first thing that I think is very, very important is change in mindset amongst youth. I think a lot of people are complaining about unemployment, excuse me, unemployment rates, more especially youth, especially in Africa. And I think it's time that a lot of young people realize that jobs are really not coming, and it's time to change our mindsets and look to entrepreneurship as the solution to our current problems in terms of unemployment. Yeah. And then the second thing, which I think was also addressed, is just how important mentorship is. I think in my experience as well. Yes, in my experience as well, like I have not had any formal mentorship, and I think it's something that is lacking, that I really, really find myself in need of. And I believe that other young entrepreneurs as well feel the same. And as Wilson in his previous presentation said, I think there's a need for real mentors who've gone through the processes, who young entrepreneurs can relate with and actually also learn from. And then the third thing I think is important to upscale youth entrepreneurship is training, both undergraduate and postgraduate training, development programs. I think what L'Oreal was presenting on is very, very important. In my undergraduate, I never learned anything about entrepreneurship. And I think it's something that is vital to incorporate in all, even earlier stages of education as well, teaching, and also just, cultivating that entrepreneurship mindset from a very, very young age. And also even for already existing businesses, development of soft skills, development programs as well for women entrepreneurs, for young entrepreneurs are very, very vital to upscale youth entrepreneurship. And lastly, as the previous presenters mentioned, also investing in startups and actually access to investments for startups. I heard someone said not just in the tech industry. I think every industry can incorporate tech into its processes. So I think all startups really, really need more in terms of investment as well.
Thank you, Mongo.
Thank you.
Samuel, 1 minute, please. We are short of time.
Yeah, so the question was the basic.
The question was the best strategies for empowering African youth entrepreneurs.
So for the equalization factor in Africa is usually education. So I believe to empower youth, we have to provide quality education that, of course, solves problems that we have in Africa. We are proud that the governments are really, the government communities are providing good quality education, which I believe is the best strategy to empower youth to become entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Samuel. Back to you, Chair. Thank you for the participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miriam. We could have taken more questions, but because of time, we can't. But let us continue with this engagement. I know the email addresses of the presenters. I think this can be got from the AAP. So if there is any question that you really wanted to ask, but because of time you could not, then you can simply send that question to the Secretariat and it will be channeled to the right presenter. So I really want to start by expressing my joy for this dialogue, and the quality of the output speaks to the passion we all have to see the African youth changing the future by expanding employment opportunities for themselves and also for the later generations. So having said that, I look forward to more engagement amongst us with a common goal of inspiring, with a goal of upskilling, and with a goal of supporting and expanding youth enterprises. So with that, let me take this opportunity to thank all of us for attending this series. And I don't know whether there is anything from the Secretariat. If there is, then this is the time. If there is none, then we can call it a day. For those still in the morning, good morning. And for some of us going home now, good evening. So thank you very much. I don't know whether there's anything from the Secretariat.
No primary. No, Alex, not really. Just as the message says that we will have the recording shared with all registrants. This is our final dialogue, and we look forward to seeing everyone in 2023 when we'll have a new series of conversations on different topics of relevance to Africa and the world. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you very much. See you next year and enjoy your Christmas holidays.